So we're going to do part 3 of my interview with Robert Drysdale, and it's an interview about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And people they're funny, like, "Hey Tim, you're a self-defense guy. Why are you into this?" Well, listen, nothing has dominated the martial arts community, the self-defense community, the military and law enforcement community than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the last 20 years. It's just absolutely part of it, and it is absolutely worth looking at, even if you have no intentions of ever checking out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but you do have an interest in self-protection, self-defense. You really should learn about the background, where they come from, how it was developed. It's not only a really interesting history and story, but it's the reason we have the UFC. It's the reason we have been able to really suss out what works in combat competitions. It's fascinating stuff. I tell everybody all the time that there's no bigger, fan of combat sports than me. I love it. I just think it's fantastic. And understanding how when these guys came on scene, the Gracies basically came on scene and just, took over the martial arts communities. Everybody now thinks it's just inherent, but you have to understand Brazilians being known for combat sports was really not even thought of as few as 20, 25 years ago. And yet by far now, Brazil gets the credit for this, and mainly because of the Gracie family. In this interview, part of the interview, Robert talks a little bit about that background, how it all came out, and some of the challenges that he had in putting in his amazing book, Opening Closed Guard. Please get this book. You're going to really love it. It covers everything in depth, but Robert and I will touch on a little bit about it right now. Now, before we get to the interview, please give me some great feedback. Please go to surviveviolence.com, give us your email, and get our free masterclass. Getting just fantastic feedback on it. Again, why would you do it? 2 things. On the YouTube platform, I have to watch how I put information out. Have to, I don't want to say censor myself. I just have to be careful on how in depth I go, especially when it comes to the subject of violence. And what I show from a graphic standpoint, I have to be very measured. I don't have to do that once I'm communicating directly with you. Also, if there's ever a chance that we could get deplatformed, we will be able to keep in touch with you. As a benefit, also being on our list, you're going to get first shot at any new products that are coming out. Any subject matter expert that you see here on the channel, if they're doing anything, I will let you know about that. I'll be doing some projects with them, and you being on our list will have first access to all that information. So again, surviveviolence.com. All right, let's get into my interview, part 3 here with Robert Drysdale. Oh, again, just real quick, you know him. Again, for you guys, if this is your first thing that you're clicking on, you haven't seen the first 2 parts, part 1 and 2, please do that. We talk extensively about the self-defense aspects and challenges of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But Robert, again, as I've said in the past, one of probably the most successful American practitioner of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He won 2 of the largest championships, gold medal in both of those world championships. By himself, a good MMA coach and a very substantial MMA fighter. He understands all aspects of it, and worked with some of the top people. You see that picture with him and Randy Couture there. He's also worked with Frank Mir and a lot of other top competitors. So he's highly sought after. He happens to be out here in Vegas, and I met him through my special operations community friends in Australia. That's how we originally met. So anyways, so we covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. Basically it was great. You were just right to the point. One of the things I'd like to talk about is I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has this amazing history. Yeah. And you went, I think, with the best of intentions when you started doing this project that you were doing to look at the history, the origins, provide some clarification, some clarity. People are really interested in that stuff, but you ran into a lot of I guess probably parochialism is the best way to say it. You have, and I see it in a lot of different things. That's why part of the reason I love doing this, and in fact, somebody like you would come on, is to show that, hey, you can have conversation. You don't all have to do the same thing to get great information out there. how did you handle that? And I know you're still handling it.
You know, it's funny, like it's been, well, actually it was not as negative as I thought it would be. I got a lot of positive feedback. That's great. Right, that's the majority of the feedback has been very positive. But just like a few days ago, this guy writes me on Instagram and he's like, oh, you're a scumbag, liar, your book is full of lies. And I'm thinking it's a troll, right?
Right.
It's like one of those fake accounts. And I go on account, like he has a family, he owns a gym, he's like a 5-stripe black belt, like this is a legit guy, like he's a normal guy.
Right.
And he's like, why didn't you interview Helio Gracie? And I'm thinking, because he's been dead for 12 years. And then he's like, why didn't you interview Hobson Gracie? And I'm going, because we did. Why didn't you interview João Alberto Barreto? But we did interview him. You're a liar. I'm like, wait a second. Did you read the book? And he goes, no, and I'm not going to read it because it's full of lies. And then I'm going, that's the age we're living in, man. Yeah. It's like stupidity has become an icon of to be proud of. Like you're proud of your ignorance. And like he was adamant about calling me a liar and he didn't read the book. And that's a lot of the flack that I've gotten over, this research has been primarily people that didn't read the book or didn't even bother, listening to what I had to say. It's just that they assumed, and this is the binary world we're living in. This is, and I mentioned this in the book because I knew it was going to be a problem. And we're living in a world where you're either liberal or conservative. Right. You're either anti-Gracie or Gracie. There's no nuance in the world. There's no objective history. There's only politics. Right. Like if I'm on this side of the aisle and you disagree with me on anything, by default, you're on the opposite end of the aisle. I'm not saying that. I'm actually somewhere in the middle here, guys. You ever think for a second that you're the one that's further like borderline fanatical about your allegiance to the Gracie family? Like, I'm not attacking anyone. Read the book. I'm very complimentary of them, but there's some things that are inaccurate, and we can back them up with sources. Oh no, the historians don't know what they're talking about. You know why they don't know what they're talking about? Oh, they weren't there. And it's like it's very difficult to argue with people who have no understanding whatsoever of historical methodology. Yeah. They have no idea how it's written, like clueless. You weren't there, so you don't know what you're talking about. Which means, no one could have an opinion on the Holocaust either, I suppose, because no one was there, right?
Well, that's to say, you have a degree in history, right?
Well, I have an unfinished master's. Yeah. I quit for bureaucratic reasons. Right.
But that's your emphasis. It's not like you're dabbling in it. You understand how to look at history.
Yeah, I've exchanged, if I say hundreds, I'm lying, like thousands of emails with, professional historians over the course of this research. Like I know I don't do this for a living. There are people out there that are, understand methodology and historiography better than I do, but I say with a certain degree of confidence that I know what I'm talking about. But you're arguing with people that have no clue. They think that they believe that history is written with opinions, and one opinion is equally valid. They're like, no, they're not equally valid. They're not opinions to begin with. I'm presenting facts here, and they can't really distance themselves from my presentation of the facts and an opinion that is theirs or someone else's, right? And it's very difficult because it's a crowd that doesn't really understand how this works, and because of that, I've kind of been thrown under the bus a lot. But like I said, the majority of feedback has been positive. So that's been good. Yeah,
and it's interesting. I see it in lots of other disciplines too. It's the idea that you're so invested in your version, or your clan, basically, that you can't objectively look at other information. And I found it's interesting, even in mine. I am so outside of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but even amongst friends, like I'll talk to one friend from one school, talk to another person. And immediately, there'll be some, not all the time, but immediately there's usually, oh, well, you don't want to train with those guys. You want to train over here. You want to do this. And to me, it's fascinating when you see that. But again, that's probably the downside of community. It's probably the downside of because there's such tight units that it probably breeds a little bit of that to where anything is perceived as possible criticism.
It's very tribal. Yeah. It's very, very tribal. And I suppose everything is like that. But when I walked into this, I'm going to take my Brazilian hat off. I'll take my American hat off. I'll take my Gracie. I'll take all hats off. And I'm like, look at this objectively. And the result, now that I'm pro-Japanese, and I'm like, I'm not Japanese at all. I've been to Japan a few times. I don't speak a word in Japanese. But, some of the criticism, like, oh, you're too pro-Japan in judo. I'm like, I've never trained judo. I don't have a leg in this fight. Why would I be pro-judo unless I were analyzing the facts objectively? But you can't. We're living in a world where people just can't see things objectively. It's just all politics, and that has been single-handedly the most difficult thing. Because I would like to talk about other things when that are more interesting to me, but I have to find myself defending, outright emphasize that I'm not attacking anyone. And this happens. There's not a week that goes by where someone doesn't attack me over something like this.
But even getting like the rights to like certain footage and stuff like that for your movie is like been difficult and stuff like that.
Well, there's problems because COVID really threw a curveball at us because we needed like licensing for like every picture that is up there. You need permission.
Right.
Like it's not like documentaries, especially like historical document like ours is a lot more work than I originally thought it was going to be. But you need like documentation for all that, and that slows everything down. We own all our footage, but there's a lot of things that, like for example, an old picture that we want to use, we need permission.
Yeah.
Right, so that takes time in COVID, like museums were closed, for example, like little things like that. But it's been a difficult process, man. Like there's a concern that we're going to be sued at some point, and I kind of like said I can't be scared of that. Like I can't allow the threat of someone suing me because they don't like our version of it or our research really. Because first of all, like I don't think I'm a coward in that sense. Like I have many things I'm scared of. Like if I have to like put my foot down on something I believe is right, I don't have a problem doing it. And I can back it up with sources. So I'm not, there was that concern initially, and there's been some people jabbing at that, but at the same time, I'm like, no, like I'm not wrong here, I'm not. In fact, if you read the book closely, I think the overall is very, it's an ode to the Gracie family, really, if you read it carefully. Like I think they're more important than they give themselves credit for, just not for the reasons they give themselves credit for. Right? They didn't invent anything. Right. But they kept alive a martial aspect of judo that died because of Olympic judo. And they kept it alive, and that gave birth to the UFC. You don't think I'm thankful for that? Yeah. I think it's incredible. I call the UFC the second greatest revolution in the history of martial arts. The first is Jigoro Kano, who created the concept of martial arts. The second is the UFC, which created the lab for all these techniques to be tested. Because up to then, it was all Hollywood.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
It was nothing real. It was all like, I think this will work, so let's train it. The UFC put it to the test, and the Gracie family was like, they were central in creating that like realistic approach to combat.
Yeah, that's what's so funny. I mean, this is why I wanted to do this. People are confusing. Listen, I am not a one-size-fits-all person. I enjoy, talking to other professionals that do different disciplines than me, different approaches than me. And that's why I want to bring these voices out, because there's a tremendous amount of you out there that do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I just wanted you to hear this. I wanted you to know about the book, and I wanted you to hear from Robert, the work that he's done, because he's really unearthed some very interesting things about the history and the progression of Jiu-Jitsu and, how it progressed and how it ended up dominating. As you heard at the end, they created through the Vale Tudo, they created basically the UFC, which literally has changed the way people look at combat sports and martial arts. There's really, I can't think of anything that really can outstripe it that way. And again, we've talked about aspects. So we'll close out in part 4 with him. We'll close everything up, and I think you'll find it really, really interesting. But anyways, please remember surviveviolence.com. Check it out. Make your comments. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the channel with any of your friends. If there's any information that you think you found useful and other people would like it, please let them know about it. We really appreciate the growth that you guys have made happen, because we're not advertising or anything. It's all because of you guys. So all the best.